I think this part is my favorite. This is where we get juicy and this is where we get activated as goddesses, because we talk about sex and sacred sexuality today. It is a big part of our existence and it has been distorted in the way we approach it as a society. This is part of the inner work. This is part of you stepping into the fullest expression of you and you having the most orgasmic life, because at the end of the day, that's really what we want. We want to be tapped into that cosmic orgasmic energy that runs through us. So many things to say on this topic, right? The first thing is to realize how distorted our relationship to our sexuality is, because it's either the porn industry, kind of how we've been taught about sex, or religion, which is taboo and sex shouldn't happen before marriage and it's only used for procreation. So either way, it's either a very distorted, very patriarchal vision of the body or something that we shouldn't even talk about. Let's break that and let's reclaim our bodies, our sexuality, and our sexual energy. Because working with that sexual energy, you're gonna see it in our sex magic practices, is one of the most powerful things to manifest the shit out of your reality, to make your dreams come true, to really feel your own power. Let me tell you, when you're tapped into your own sensuality, you develop what we talked about in inner union, because it's the way you talk to yourself, it's the way you show up for yourself, and it's also the way you make love to yourself. Sacred sexuality, there is a very important piece of that is self-pleasure. Again, you're gonna have a whole lesson on that. It's the way you relate to your own pleasure, to your own sexuality, to your body. When you take that back into your own hands, it brings that deep sense of sovereignty again. We talked about it all along. It's because our personal power, our confidence, and us being the fullest expression of who we truly want to be comes with that sense of being grounded in our truth, not of like victim of what we've been taught and our conditioning and programming and protective mechanism and all those things. Let's think about it for a second. Our sexual energy, sexuality, is what brings babies onto this planet, which means it what transforms consciousness into actual beings. It's what is birthing new consciousness into the world. This is really one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful energy out there. And it's what is also used not just for babies, but that's how we create everything. That's the core of who we are as humans and who we are as souls as well. There is something very sacred and magical about it, something very mystical, something very connected to God, the universe, however you want to call it. When we see sexuality in this light, it brings a sense of, again, something ritualistic, something sacred. And that's what we want to explore in our lives for everything, and especially for sexuality. This is your time to be in your fullest expression and reclamation of your sexuality, your sensual and sexual essence. Because again, that's at the core of who we are, and that's how we move. And like, if you think about it, think about this sexual desire, how powerful it is, how a turn on can really create a lot of things, and just the power of it when we feel it in our bodies. No matter where you are with that relationship with your sexuality, it's a very tricky one. You can be very new to this concept and have on top of it a lot of sexual trauma, which is, to be honest, is very sad to be doing the work that I do, because I've never came across one woman that doesn't have some sort of trauma. So there is like heavy trauma, like some sort of sexual abuse, rape, being so hardly conditioned by, growing up in a very religious home where it's everything is made wrong and blaming, and there's light trauma, like not respecting your genitals. It's that underlying feeling of shame around your sexuality and trying to perform in the bedroom, or putting a tampon inside your vagina when you actually didn't want to, and forcing and pushing your body to take on this thing. Like, this is also some kind of sexual trauma, where we don't respect our pussies and our yonis, this sacred space in our bodies for what it is, for a portal of creation. There is a few steps and a few things that I want us to go through around that, but you can also be like quite confident about your sexuality, quite open, quite liberated, and have moved through already quite a, made peace with your past, be quite sexual being. And usually the edge here is to find the expression of this, is to find how you can like fully reclaim it and deepen your sexual experiences. Because what I came to realize when I started my sexual healing and my tantric path is, by the way, parenthesis here, the tantra tradition and the way, so tantra is infused in everything that I do, right? Is my path. And even though this course is not about tantra per se, this is tantra, because tantra's the core of it is experiencing God through our bodies. It's like divinity is found within. It's within and without. It's through everything that we do. It's not like a higher force like God and we're poured a thing and we need to like come in reverence to that thing outside ourselves. It's the only path that doesn't exclude sexuality. So a lot of people confuse tantra for being all about sex. It's actually just the path. Like if you think about even yoga, you should like repress and suppress your sexual desire and come in celibacy. It's that very like you sit in meditation and you don't feel and you transcend. Is very like being up there in the spiritual world, where tantra is deeply rooted down and going up. So this is also the path that doesn't reject any shadows, because there is not the light and the shadow and like the good and the bad, and that is very present in a lot of spiritual paths. With that being said, let's circle back. The tantric path is really about honoring and bringing the sacredness in our sexuality back. How juicy is that? Again, I let you discover all the sessions to walk you through a little bit of the main component of that, and how reclaiming your sexuality and giving yourself full permission to explore it, to dive into it, to find the gems into it, and how much it will like amplify your magnetism, your power, your goddess energy, and just this sense again of I'm here and I'm loving my life and I deserve an orgasmic life and I'm gonna have an orgasmic life. What I was trying to express before is that personally on my tantric journey and my exploration of sacred sexuality is infinite. It's literally infinite. Usually the way we have been taught sex is very limited and it's very goal-oriented. We're gonna dive into that, into self-pleasure practices, but it's time to forget everything you know and come with that erotic innocence. So erotic innocence is the idea of becoming like a child again. Like it's moving through layers of shame and guilt and conditioning around our bodies and sexuality, because a child would touch himself in different part of the body and just see how it feels. Like if you see a little baby, they will make no difference between their feet or their hands or their hearts or their genitals. And if they touch a part and it feels good, like there's no shame yet, there's no taboo. And it's then layers and layers of like, don't do that, and like this is weird, and like you should do it in private, that we're starting to slowly be conditioned to be ashamed of certain parts of our bodies and to hide. It builds that distortion. So bringing this innocence back of like, this is very innocent to want to explore your sexuality, even if there is shame and guilt, and even if there is sort of discomfort and edges or curiosity, like I'm gonna lean into that with an open heart, bringing this innocence of just exploring and experiencing and playing, really.